Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, today I have a couple of more bizarre stories to read to you all today. One involving yet another alien abduction, and another, of all things, in Newfoundland, people have seen Bigfoot. Both accounts are certainly strange, so let's get into the first one. Silent Terror, 1971 UFO abduction mystery at Lookout Pass, and hear all about what happened. In 1971, a woman and her father encountered a glowing red light while driving through Lookout Pass on the Idaho mountain border. Hours of missing time, her father's fearful silence, and tears he could never explain left her convinced they had been abducted that night. Let's get into the full account and hear it in their own words. Hi, Lon. I contacted you a few years ago regarding a UFO experience my sons and I had in the mid-'80s. I feel much more at ease discussing these things now than I did back then, and I want to let you know that experience wasn't my first. In fact, I believe my parents were also experiencers. It has been noted before, folks, that abduction scenarios and experiences seem to run in families. So let's read on with this particular experience's story. On one occasion in 1971, my father and I shared an experience that has puzzled and scared me ever since. I'm from Southwest Washington State, and at the time, my older sister was attending college at Montana State in Missoula, Montana. My father decided to visit her, and since my then husband was on a 2-week graveyard shift at the Naval Hospital where he was stationed, my father asked if I would like to accompany him. The trip was uneventful, albeit a beautiful drive until we reached the eastern edge of a Lookout Pass on the Idaho-Montana border. At around 1:30 a.m., we entered a narrow, twisting valley created by the Clark Fork River, surrounded by towering mountains that made the scenery feel almost claustrophobic. We anticipated arriving at my aunt's house around 4:30 or 5 o'clock a.m. Mountain Time. It sounds ordinary, doesn't it, folks? I've said that before, but in this case, it sounds like the area that they were already in was already kind of spooky to begin with. They were on a road in the deep woods, and everything around them was just closing in on them. Now, we have to ask, folks, was this purposely planned? Did these aliens intend to take them here? Or was it just a coincidence? I don't know, but certainly it's still very strange. But let's read on. As we rounded a sweeping corner, both of our attention was immediately drawn to a bright glowing red light at the top of a mountain on our right. We questioned, "What is that? Is that a fire?" We were concerned because this was a non-populated area and emergency services would have struggled to address a fire in such a location. I lost sight of the light after about 30 seconds, but my father continued to watch it in the side mirror. Suddenly, he sped up, told me to get down on the floorboard, and repeatedly shouted, "Don't look, don't look." He began driving at an alarming speed. Now, I'm pretty sure all of you can figure out what happened and why this father here ordered his daughter to lie on the floorboard. What he probably saw was the light approaching them at an alarming speed itself, and he basically, gunned it. Now, I have to ask, do you think you could make out that it was indeed a flying saucer? Or, maybe it was some other thing, perhaps. Either way, he felt alarmed indeed. But let's continue. The next thing I recall is being parked outside my aunt's home. She was tapping on the window of my side of the car, asking what was wrong and why we were so late. I was utterly bewildered, looking at my father for answers. He shook his head slightly and whispered, "I don't know. Let me talk." Both of us were shaking and in total dismay. He explained to her that we were late because he grew tired and stopped at a rest stop to grab some sleep. Then he made up an excuse about needing to visit his father's house for breakfast and the associated lateness. When we drove off, I asked him what had happened, how had we arrived at my aunt's so quickly, and why it was light outside. He turned to me and said, "We aren't supposed to know. We're not going to talk about it, so drop it." I stayed quiet, and I didn't think about it again until after the sighting in the 80s. I tried to speak with him about it afterward, never mentioning my recent experience or UFOs. I merely asked, "Do you remember, and what the hell happened?" He burst into tears and told me, "Honey, this is something I just can't talk about." I tried again about 5 years later, but he once again started to cry and refused to discuss it. My dad has since passed away 16 years ago. He was a powerful man, and those are the only times I ever saw him cry. More than anything else, witnessing my father's tears during those 2 moments convinced me that we were abducted. I have no other recollections from the night in 71, but I know something scared my father so profoundly that he couldn't even bring himself to talk about it. Thank you, Lon. It felt good to get this off my chest, MS. incredibly bizarre story, folks. Remember, her father was probably a World War II veteran at the very least, and he himself couldn't deal with this. It was so terrifying that he just froze up every time it was mentioned to him. So this must have been a truly terrifying thing that even the strongest of men just could not deal with. Remember that when you basically think about people being abducted, folks, and what that would actually mean if that happened to you. Now, I'm only assuming that MS's father was a World War II vet, folks, but that's the general feeling I get from her description of him. He might not have been. Maybe he was basically someone who basically was part of basically the Korean War. But either way, folks, that was still considered, well, part of the greatest generation who fought in those two wars, folks. So God knows what this man actually faced, and the fact that this terrorized him, that's truly terrifying. But let's move on to the next article. Newfoundland Bigfoot, multiple witnesses that was not a bear. Let's get into it now. While driving near Branch, Newfoundland, 3 friends witnessed a towering, hairy ape-like figure illuminated by headlights. Its green, reflective eyes locking with theirs before it strode effortlessly into the woods. The chilling encounter, confirmed by all present, left no doubt in their minds that this was no bear, but Bigfoot himself. About 12 years ago, 2 friends and I were driving to a small town called Branch, Newfoundland, about 2.5 hours from St. John's, where we lived. We were bringing my friend back to his cabin to pick up his car his uncle was fixing. On the way back, D was in front with his car, and M and I were in M's car. It was maybe an hour or two after sunset, prime time for wayward moose on the highway. D was up front with his high beams, and we were about 20 feet behind, trying to stay in the wash of his headlights. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, a baby moose and its mother wandered across the road, so we slowed down, keeping our eyes on the woods just behind the ditch on the side of the road. A few turns later, we sped up a little. In the ditch on the left side of the road, we saw a giant human-shaped hairy ape. We all saw it when D's headlights lit him up, and as our trail lights hit him, he was turning back to look, just like in the Patterson film. The damn thing was eye level with me, sitting in the car, standing in the ditch, and staring at me with dark green eyes reflected in his eyes. Without pause, it took 2 strides out of the ditch into the woods. None of us had cell phones, so we planned to stop at an old train bridge over a waterfall. When we pulled up beside D's car and rolled down the window, D leaned over and asked, "Did you guys see the hairy naked man in the ditch?" We were speechless, and no one wanted to get out of the car, so we just got back on the road and left. Yes, there are bears, and I've seen bears stumble on hind legs, but this was no bear. This was Bigfoot J. Indeed, yet another startling encounter people seeing Bigfoot, folks. Was it actually it, or what? All I can say that here is yet another encounter of these people encountering this creature, but some people will argue that what they saw was probably just a bear nonetheless. No matter how much the witness will describe it, skeptics will argue, no, you're stupid. It was a bear. But I kind of get the feeling here that this person knows what a bear looks like and could easily tell it from this. But then again, the skeptics will argue, well, you were just scared and you misinterpreted what you saw, well, as Bigfoot. Because, there's the thing that is a well-known phenomena with people, that the predator is bigger. That means that basically when you see a predator, it can look bigger to you out of fright. And what happened here, skeptics will argue that what you saw was a bear, but your mind misinterpreted what you saw as Bigfoot because you were so scared you just couldn't understand exactly what you were actually seeing. No, you saw a bear. I kind of get the feeling here that this woman, the witness, was actually on the level, and I kind of detest the idea of basically saying everything was just fear and hallucinations. And mind you, it wasn't really a hallucination, but her basically, misinterpreting what she saw. This is what basically most skeptics will argue, but I think she really was saying she saw Bigfoot. Either way, folks, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics that are bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.